Well, good evening, Allen Temple family and friends from wherever you are joining us this evening. Welcome to this special edition of Theological Thursdays, Maundy Thursday edition. We are in our Holy Week, and we certainly wanted to take time and opportunity to be able to explore all of the issues and challenges and events in the life of Jesus as we make our journey to the cross. So first, let me take this opportunity to welcome you, to greet you, to encourage you to share, text somebody, send the link to somebody, let them know we are online, call them. You can see me, but I can't see you, so pick up your phone and call them and tell them we are in for a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Type in the chat. Let me see where you are joining us from. Okay, it says, if my audio goes wonky, you all let me know, because I do have my earpiece here, so I will put it in. But where are you joining from tonight? Let us know that you are here. I am so excited to have a wonderful conversation partner tonight that I am getting ready to introduce, but I want to make sure that our sound is going to be okay. So how is it sounding? You all let me know in the chat. Do I need my earpiece, or are we okay? Once you all let me know, then I will go ahead and bring that conversation partner on so we can get this started. How are we sounding? Are we okay? Good evening. Good evening. How's the sound, Sister West? Am I cracking for you? It could just be my voice. Because you all know I'm getting over being challenged health-wise. I've had walking pneumonia. Joining from D.C., so glad to have you. A bit broken up? Okay, not great. Let's see if we can fix that. All right, let's try it. You all hold on. And thank you for your patience with technology. And I am going to see if we can get this sound together. But keep typing in the chat. Keep greeting. It's always good to know where people are joining us from. Let's see. I see. Let's see if this is better. Okay, how about this? Is this better? Little static? Okay, we're going to proceed. All right, cousin, earpiece. I'm going to put it in and fix it while we bring somebody on. Good evening, Deacon. And so tonight, we are dealing with a very significant subject. I think a very relevant subject. I think it's a subject. Greetings, Pastor Dawson, joining from LA. It's good to be with you and have you on. A subject that I think all of us contend with. So it may get a little deep tonight. So you all pray now. But my conversation partner is none other than Pastor Floyd Thompkins, Dr. Floyd Thompkins, who is the CEO of the Justice and Peace Foundation. He's the pastor of St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church. He's been the dean of religious life at prestigious institutions like Stanford, like Princeton. He's won numerous awards, numerous honors. He's with us tonight for this conversation because he has a background in psychological trauma. He has a background in supporting the bereaved and the grieving and those who are struggling with anxiety. And then certainly did a lot of work during the COVID pandemic around spirituality and mental health. And I also have to add, he is the one that stole the heart of an Allen Temple daughter, our beloved Reverend Kathy Patton, now Thompkins, who we adore, who he is married to. And so I greet you tonight, sir. Thank you for joining us. You want to take an opportunity and just open with a few words, say hello. We're glad to have you.
Thank you for letting me be here. And again, hello, everyone. I hope that I don't have the same crackling sound problem. I'm really grateful to be here with Pastor Jackie, who is one of the leading pastors in the country, as well as a great theologian, and as well as just a great woman of God that is making a lot of things happening. And for this particular broadcast, which looks at the whole of the human experience and not just simply what religious folk ought to think about it. So thank you again.
You are welcome. You are welcome. So you all, as we are going along, be sure to put your questions in the chat. I'm going to be addressing you, asking you some questions as well. And if you want to answer, you're free to answer. So as we said, today is Maundy Thursday. And so Maundy Thursday, the word itself, right, has its root in the Latin mandatum. right? It's from where we get the word mandate. So this is the evening as we go through the Lord's Supper. And if you have your Bibles, your paper Bibles, your electronic Bibles, we're going to sit in Matthew 26. That's where we're starting. So we're going to sit in Matthew 26 for a while. But it is the evening where Jesus is going to give a new command. He's going to give a mandate. But Maundy, Thursday, is also thought to be one of the darkest times other than Good Friday and Holy Week, because there's some key events that have happened, right? So we're going to have the Lord's Supper that we all know about, right? Jesus is going to bring the disciples together. Before he brings them together, he's going to do that dreaded thing, Dr. Floyd, that I talked about earlier. He's going to gather his disciples. He's going to wash their feet. Alan Tipple, you all remember Dr. Olu Barriola, God rest his soul, and Dr. J. Alfred Smith Jr. would hold the Maundy Thursday service, and they would wash one another's feet and wash the leaders' feet. Then we have the Lord's Supper. We have the Garden of Gethsemane, you see in Matthew 26. But what we're here tonight for is you find in Matthew 26, right around that 47th verse, although the incident begins earlier, the betrayal of Jesus by Judas. And so that is what brings our conversation together tonight, because I believe it is impossible to be a believer, even just really to be a human, and not have to deal with the burden of betrayal. And so, Dr. Floyd, talk to us about the reality of betrayal, and moreover, in your words, what is betrayal?
That is and thank you tonight. That the idea of Judas's betrayal is in all four Gospels, not three, all four Gospels, and it is in fact really important that betrayal. You understand what Judas is supposed to have done is betray Jesus, and then Peter, for doing almost the same thing, is only called a denier. What's the difference between a betrayer and a denier, right? And so the setup of this is that in Matthew 10, Judas comes and we know he's the disciples. But then John reminds us that then he becomes the chief treasurer of the disciples. Now, again, in Luke 10, because some of us only think the disciples are 12 people, but in Luke 10, we know there's 72 of them that he sends out.
Right.
So he is the trusted among, and he is chosen by Jesus, trusted of the disciples with their money. And so then when he denies, it's really painful. Now, I've written on this about the idea. So what is the reality is, in order for someone to be a close friend of yours, they've had to pass trust test. They've had to show themselves. They've had to show themselves to be trustworthy. It doesn't just happen, right? So trust is something that's matured by time, by experience, and by emotions. And so that human beings do not easily trust someone. So when someone gets there, the end point of trust is vulnerability. Mm-hmm. And so now you're completely vulnerable. They pass the test of trust. By the way, there's first mistrust, and then it can go into distrust, but then there's distrust. I trust you.
Right.
And that means I have said I will be vulnerable to you where I am to very few people. And then when that person betrays you, what are you going to do about it? It hurts you. And you can try to deny it and say, oh, no. If it was somebody that was really close to you. It is a spiritual battle anytime someone betrays you. Because, again, folk can't betray you unless they have their trust first. Right. And they can't trust you unless they've passed all that. So two things that I'm going to end with this. One, when someone betrays you, that means they value something or somebody more than you, so rejection is a part of it, mm-hmm. right? Because they betrayed you for something else that they valued more than you. So the fact that you may be feeling rejected, don't go past that. That is a part of betrayal, right? She did this, he did this to me. I thought we were like that, right? And you're finding out we might be like that, but someone is more closer to them. The second thing that I want you to know for betrayal, it always comes as a surprise. You can't get ready for betrayal. You can't get ready for betrayal. That's why it hurts you so much. Right? It always
It comes as a surprise.
right. So,
Okay, well, let me go here.
yeah,
Let me go here.
yeah.
Because what we always hear in times like this, and I promise you, we're going to get to a hard and fast definition, but what we always like to say is, well, Jesus picked Judas, that he picked his betrayer, that he had to have known that this was going to occur the way it occurred because he picked him by his own hand, right?
So,
You've heard
right.
that.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, I want you to expand the reality is every disciple in that room was a betrayer, had the potential of betraying Jesus, right? So,
Okay.
yeah, but he picked all 12 of them. All 12 of them had the possibility of betraying. Now, again, his name is Iscariot, and we think he came from a particular subgenre of people that were more likely to want Jesus to be a lot more nationalistic than all the rest of them around the table. So he may have had more proclivity to do so. But understand this. When God, all of us have the potential of being betrayed. God doesn't pick us because God wants to use us. God's not a manipulator. God allows us in the choices and then works in all things for our good, right? Reality-wise,
Wait. You're going to have to slow that down and remix it and say it one more time. Just remix it for us.
right. I mean, I think there's something really dangerous when we believe, because what it is means we don't want to take accountability. When we say, oh, God brought me into this place and he knew I was going to make a mess up. So that must be the will of God. Right.
Right.
I'm putting the country now. I'm going country now. Okay. So what God does is that we've all sinned and come short of the glory of God. We all have possibilities in choices. God says, I'm going to work in all your choices for your good. That doesn't mean, however, that choice that you made is neither blessed or was ordained. That was your choice, but that God worked it out anyway. Because in the end, the problem that Judas, his betrayal, didn't have to lead to his death. That was his choice also. So the reality is that he chose all those disciples. All of them will run after. When he gets arrested, ain't nobody stood up and said, hey, that's Jesus. No, they all ran.
Right, even silent betrayers, right? Many of them betrayed without ever opening their mouths at all. They just stood by and said, look what had happened was, right? And so I wanted to have this conversation tonight. And so for those of you who are viewing, in essence, what we're establishing is that betrayal is an act, a deliberate act, or a deliberate violation of your trust. It's when somebody you have placed your confidence in, someone that you have had expectations of, has deliberately, and then sometimes we feel betrayal even when it's not deliberate. They have violated our expectation, violated our trust, and in some measure have done us some harm. So I really wanted to make it relevant for us, not just because of the life of Jesus, but I am suggesting that betrayal is the feeling and sentiment of so many people, whether it's as a result of our election, our national election, betrayal in the sense, I'm sure there are federal workers all over the nation, even some, under the sound of my voice, who are feeling betrayed by systems and jobs that they have been faithful to. How you work somewhere 30 years and then just get an do saying you can pick your retirement or you can take your chances, right? And so there has to be deep senses of betrayal. So it's not just in friendships that happens. It's not just in relationships that happens. It can also be institutions. It can be organizations. And I'm even going to go out on a limb and suggest that sometimes we even struggle because we feel betrayed by God.
Absolutely. I'm glad you threw that last one in, because the third thing I was going to say is that you always react to betrayal by trying to deny it, because you did trust the person. Right. And so there may be somebody tonight that you know in your knowing that you've been betrayed, and that your religious moment says, don't react to it. We just let's immediately forgive them. So stop right there and understand that the lesson in this is not in denying it, but embracing it and moving through it. And in terms of nationally, I have heard more people. I work with a lot of young people now in colleges and whatever. And what's really interesting, and I think it's probably not just young people, but it's also people who grew up post post-segregation, in these integrated realities. And they thought they were their friends. And they
Yeah.
thought, well, I grew up with them. I went to all the parties with them. And then, wait a minute, who you vote for?
You voted for
You
who?
know?
Right.
And I think that's that national betrayal. In fact, one of the a young church leader, she happened to be African American, she happened to be lesbian. We were in a group with her, and she said, "This is the F around and find out election," and y'all can fill out what line is, right? And I remember being
You're
old
saying
school
it's not
growing.
faith, right? It's not
Yeah.
faith.
And I think that's what happened. And so that, again, that's why I wanted to bring this other point in, because don't deny the reality of the betrayal, because it's only when you look at it that the truth can set you free and say, maybe this country, maybe this friend, maybe this relationship wasn't what you thought it was. So you can now reframe it and become something better and different.
And I wanted to make sure that we establish for the people, just so we'll think, as they say, don't think it's strange, right? When these fiery trials come upon you. But betrayal really does have its roots in the Bible. And so If you're looking at scripture tonight, you all, we're taught, right, that the first betrayal happened in heaven. Mm-hmm. That's what we're taught, that we have Satan, because Satan, Lucifer, rebelled against God in heaven, right? So even God was initially betrayed. Then you see it where? In Cain and Abel. You see it with Joseph and his brothers. You see it with Absalom and David, where a son is betraying the father. And it goes on and on and on until we get to tonight, where there is Judas, right? And so I want to set this up just a little bit.
Pastor Jackie, can I also say, everything that happened in this drama could have happened without Judas betraying Jesus.
I agree.
They were going to get to him. So don't. That's the inevitability. No. But at the same time, that's why this betrayal is in all those gospels to say, it's important for us to look at it, but don't get it twisted that somehow he had to do this.
He would have made it to the cross.
Yeah, he would have made it
of the betrayal. And so yesterday, because I've been writing, and when I tend not to feel well, I write. So yesterday, I wrote about vantage point, and I wrote about how your vantage point affects how you interpret and process a story. Right. And so in Matthew, I want to say it's in Mark as well, you have the dinner party, right? Jesus is at the dinner party on this day, and he's reclining, having dinner. He's in Bethany. We know Mary, Martha, Lazarus. Those are the folks that are in Bethany. The disciples are there. Mary decides, hey, I have this gift, and I'm going to pour it out on God, right? I'm sure she is ecstatic because he raised my brother back from the dead, right? So he's here. I'm going to give him this offering. But it says while she's worshiping, while she's sharing this gift, Judas is kind of sitting to the side talking about, look at, I wasted all this money, right? I can't believe that she did not sell this and give it to the poor. So two people having the same experience in the same situation interpreted it differently, and it resulted in these different actions. So the text says that when Judas saw that right after the dinner party, and Mary's, she's made this big display, that is when he went and had the meeting with the chief priest and said, okay, you know what? I don't know what this cat is here to do, right? I thought we were getting ready to take over the world. Now he's here, right? He's reclining, people pouring oil on him, right? What is he actually here to do? What will you give me in order for me to betray him? And so it leads me to ask, in your opinion, what are some of the motivations? What are some of the causes? What are some of the things that makes a person betray someone else?
Yeah, no. This is from our Bible study, and when you stop acting out of the framework of what they thought you were, instead of getting to know you better, they betray you because they no longer may have outgrown them. I mean, we haven't looked at what happens in betrayal, and John really gets into this. It basically exactly. I totally agree with you. It's like he's not who I thought he was. At some point, people come to God because I need something from God. But then
Right.
when God says, okay, you got that, but now I need for you to grow bigger than your need into something which is your purpose. That's when people turn around and start saying, God disappointed me.
Right.
God, this is what I wanted from God. And that is the most dangerous moment in the Christian's life, is when God gets bigger than anything they had ever conceived. And it's also the most dangerous thing in a nation's life. It has been said, that what we're looking at now is a white riot. It has been said, because this is a moment where there will be more people of color than white people. That moment, right, where you
Right.
are again about to outgrow the conception of what we thought we ought to be. What do? Out of defense, you betray. You try to hurt.
So when you stop meeting that person's expectations, or when you exceed their expectations,
Right.
and so for you watching tonight, there is a date, right? That date that they say that people of color will outgrow white folks is 2035. So that part of the reason why we have a project 2025 is because they're saying we got 10 years, right, in order to turn this thing around. And so this furious action, this furious activity is an attempt to stop what is really inevitable, right? So it's like the people on TikTok when the girl says, we've got 30 minutes. You've got 30 minutes. That's how they're feeling. You've only got 30 minutes to stop people of color who really already outnumber you from overrunning. Right. So I get that when unmet expectations or disappointment. Right. What about, I'm
Well,
thinking
so
sometimes
don't
it's
betray.
relevance. hmm What are some other things you think? I think sometimes
No.
people do it because they want to be relevant.
Well, or I
Ambition.
mean, that's another way. Yeah. Envy. We don't want to say that, but a lot of it is just pure, unadulterated envy. I mean, first of all, I'm
Yeah.
disappointed in you. Second of all, you. I had this expectation of all you could be, and you something else, right? And you're bigger than
hmm
that. And be begin to be suspicious of people who keep saying you change and they don't celebrate with you.
Okay, here we go. Slow it down.
I
Slow
mean,
it down. Bring it back and repeat
with
it. Run it
people,
again.
with people who know you for a long time, and
Yeah.
they say you change, which inevitably everyone does, right?
And
Right. But they
should.
don't celebrate you as changing. They mean it as a put down. They're at that moment that betrayal could be imminent, or they have to grow.
Mm.
That is a moment that you have to look at and go, hmm. Now he done said that 4 times to me. Okay, okay.
Right. 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 Right.
That don't sound. That's because that's where you begin to smell the envy, smell the anger, smell the relevancy, and in terms of mental health and things like that, this happens even in relationships, right? Between where folks, they've grown together, and then someone grows in a professionally or somehow or got a degree or something at that moment, right? We always say to them, okay, pay attention to this moment, because this is a moment where either your love grows into something new, or this person, out of feeling like they're less than you, might begin to sabotage you.
Yeah.
And so think about that and be aware of that. I think since Jesus is God and knows, I mean, Jesus knows all of this is going on, which is why he calls him the dinner,
hmm
right? Not the Passover, but to dinner. It's like,
Right.
y'all, a lot of stuff about to happen up in here, and you're at the moment. You're at the moment. Pay attention to this moment. And I think, yeah, I don't know what other. I'd be interested from the comments of other people, saying
So,
what
what
they
do you
think
all
that
think?
betrayal
Those of you
comes
who
up.
are viewing and listening tonight, what do you think are some of the reasons why people betray others? So, you've heard the desire for relevance, you have heard envy, just pure unadulterated envy, you've heard unmet expectations. But if you have some ideas, put those in the chat because we want to see those tonight. What you think some of those issues were. I was also thinking that sometimes people do it for acceptance, right? That they want to be received and accepted by others. And so if the group is rejecting this person, you're going to kind of join in the club, kind of that
Right.
group activity sense. And so susceptible to betrayal when you outgrow who someone thinks you are, absolutely, or who they want you to be. Unmet
Right.
expectations, Some other ideas that you all
Yeah.
think? America betrayed
And
me. I see you, Joe Robinson. America betrayed me with the election, and now I see it from another perspective. Yeah, we all felt that way, especially I. The way I was
absolutely.
stomping around the country, talk about get out to vote, help your grandma vote, right? Do everything. It was kind of like, really,
Can
really,
we
you
can we go
guys?
can we go another level of real though? Also, I
Sure.
think within African American community, when you look at the voting patterns, I do also think there's some intergenerational betrayal possibilities here,
Speak to
and
that. Speak to
right,
that.
because again, I'm involved in intergenerational dialogue, and by the way, this goes all across all demographics. I'm just talking about. It is true that young people tended to be in this election for the first time more conservative than older people.
Mm.
And older people got really angry, going, after all I did for you,
Yes.
right? But I also think that's one of the other things that happens with betrayal is that we also get too comfortable with one another, and we don't treat each other with the same level of respect as the relationship goes. I think the problem is that Melva Beals is in our congregation, and she says
Mm.
this, and she says it out loud. She's one of the little nine. She said, "Little nine still living."
Uh-oh.
I'm
We lost you. Are you there?
kind of dropping off here.
Okay, but I can still hear you a little bit. So you were talking about one of your members was a part of the Little Rock Nine. Are you still there? Well, we're hoping that Dr. Floyd is going to get back on and join us. But I did see in the chat tonight, some of you said fear, some of you said greed, some of you said jealousy, all of those, selfishness, absolutely, self-motivation. Okay, when you saw folks at the White House Black History Program, they appeared to be under 40. They did, and they were targeted. Some of those social media influencers, some of those musicians, some of those hip hop artists, they were absolutely targeted in order to build and to send us a message. And so hopefully, Dr. Floyd, we can get him back on. I think he's still at Stanford, and so we don't know what the internet is doing there, but hopefully we can get him back on and continue the conversation. But I wanted to lift up some other things for you as well. There you are. Speaking, it shall occur.
So I just want to here's what she said real quickly. All the Little Rock, the 8 of the Little Rock 9 said in the last 15 years, what they noticed is that Black colleges stopped asking them to come speak, and the places they were asked to come speak were white college campuses.
Mm.
And that somehow they forgot they're saying we forgot our own stories. Right.
I would agree. Would you all agree with that listening? I would agree with that. Because you know who else says that? Dr. Michael Eric Dyson.
Right.
He says
Yeah,
predominantly
Michael,
most of the campuses he speaks on are actually PWIs and not HBCUs. Yeah.
And what happens is, when you meet Jesus, I mean, think about it. When Judas met Jesus, he was the savior. Then he got to hang around with him for a while. He would have never betrayed if he hadn't also lost the sense of respect for Jesus. And anyone who betrays you has lost their respect for you.
But here's my challenge. I have a couple of challenges. Yeah. No, they are challenges for me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because whenever I read about the life of Jesus, I am completely humbled all the time. Right? Because we always think that if we were living during biblical days, somehow we would have behaved drastically differently than persons in the text. But when I think we say Jesus was fully human, fully divine, right? That's what we teach. That's what we believe. The scripture text says in that Matthew 26 version of the dinner that you call, that he put his hand. Do you understand what I'm saying? He said the one, okay, y'all, you have your Bibles, Matthew 26, it might be around that 47th verse. He said, the one in whom I dip this piece of bread with is going to betray me, right? That's what he says. Judas's hand is in the bowl, and he says, surely, Lord,
not me.
Not I. right? The money is in your pocket, sir. You've already done it. And so I'm thinking when I think about, and I'm moving to the next subject, but what we never consider is that fully human Jesus. And what it must have taken was for him not to reach across the table and say, why are you playing in my face on tonight? Right? That there's something that needs to be done. But there is this notion of the impact of betrayal that it actually has on us, or betrayal trauma. Right. And there are researchers that are that suggest that when you are dealing with betrayal, it has some of the same effects as PTSD on your brain. Right. And so what's the impact of it? Right. We're affected. We are changed when we have been betrayed.
Oh, good Lord. Yeah. So here's going to be a difference in our theology, because I think that phrase "dip with me."
Mm-hmm.
I hope. Okay, so see this, you know what that means? It means I should not disagree with Pastor Jackie, because if I do, they're gonna take me off the internet. That's what's happening. Pastor Jackie, here's where we're different in theology. That phrase, the one who did was me. I don't think I think he meant everybody in that room who, in fact, is going to betray him. I think it's because we've preached it so much and we believe, but actually, it's actually much more damning than Judas. Every one of you.
So at some point, everybody had dipped their bread in the bowl, is what you're saying. So exactly. Judas just happened to be the one when I said it, but everyone is indicted.
Right. It's in fact, there are people who've written on this, Bible scholars, that says that is a phrase of the day that is simply meaning exactly that everybody gonna do this, and everybody has done that, because that is the very definition of what this meal does, is dipping. Right. And so the reality is because I think the danger and trauma is increased when we get into the woe is me thing. And there may be somebody at home that says, God, why do people always betray me? And I mean, well, quite frankly, you betrayed a few people in your life too. Okay, so let's get off that. Right. Let's get on to why, how, and what the next step is. Right. And also, there's something really humbling. The white American evangelical church has betrayed Jesus.
Yeah.
Also.
Hold on, stop right there, because I want to make sure. Hold on,
yeah.
I want to make sure they got that. So what he said was, because I know the internet's stalling a little bit, he said the white evangelical church has betrayed Jesus. I need somebody to type it in the chat. Deacon Carla, I know you quick. I got some good quick typers, but that is what he said, and so that needs to be on record in the chat, right? Because there is truth to that.
Because they're at the table
also,
with Jesus.
But it also does not leave some of our black churches off the hook too.
Absolutely.
Because some of us we just have black face, but that same theology that has betrayed Jesus is present in some of our black churches as well.
Absolutely. And so you can be at the table with Jesus, but be frustrated because he's not doing your agenda. So you sell in order to try to manipulate Jesus to become what you wanted to become.
Thank you, Victoria. Thank you all.
I mean, Judas is trying to manipulate. There is also people who've written on this text that says what Judas was trying to do was set Jesus up to have the revolution, which is
to achieve his means, that manipulation, right? And so I tell this story all the time because I also want to make it relevant to the individual, because oftentimes, because we are justice-oriented people, that is where we tend to lean. We lean to community, we lean to power dynamics, we lean to impact. But when I went away to Howard School of Divinity, right after I preached my trial sermon, it's 30 years. I realized today, y'all, it's been 30 years. I preached in 1995. Can you believe it? It's been that long? I can't believe it.
That was after grade school, right? That was after grade school.
Right after grade school, because I just turned 21. So either way. But my sister went with me. My sister Angel went with me. And, we landed at the dorm. And getting a dorm room at an HBCU is an experience. It's not an application only. It is not paying a fee. It is an experience. And if there's anybody tonight listening to me and you've been to an HBCU, you know what I'm talking about. And so I was finally able to secure a room. And so we just put all the stuff in the room and say, girl, don't leave. Because if we leave, this might be somebody else's room. And so we had a long talk that night because she could not believe that I had taken this turn, right? That you had heard this voice that nobody else, heard but you. And it was so impactful that you quit your job, you changed your whole life. This is what you're going to do. Then she talked to me about how she had refused relationship with God because she prayed for her grandmother not to die. And her grandmother, of course, passed away. And because that expectation was not met, because that prayer was not answered, she was done with God. And so I say that to say that, yes, it can happen on this very corporate macro level, but it can also happen with us when we feel that God hasn't answered our prayers or God hasn't met our expectation, right? In the same way when people say, well, why didn't Jesus heal everybody that was at the pool? Why did he just heal the man that was at, the pool of Bethesda? So I just wanted to make it clear that it can happen on so many levels, but it's still impactful, Pastor Floyd. So what are some of the ways that it can impact us? Is that PTSD thing real? Did I lose him again, Pastor Floyd? All right, we're going to wait for him to come back on. But there are researchers that say that when you have been betrayed, that you can experience something known as betrayal trauma. And it shows up in nightmares or difficulty sleeping or intrusive thoughts where you can't get it out of your mind, where you'll tend to isolate, you'll tend to build up walls. And oftentimes it serves the purpose of breaking your spirit. That when you have experienced betrayal, it breaks your spirit. And that's impactful because scripture is very clear in Proverbs that a broken spirit dries your bones, that it is impossible to live a full and healthy and holistic life if you have not dealt with the betrayal that you've experienced in your life, whether it's betrayal from childhood, relationships, job, friendships, church, pastor, and it goes on and on and on, election, country, nation, that at some point we have to acknowledge and be mindful that betrayal is a real thing that happens, and being a Christian, being a believer, loving God, serving God does not give you automatic immunity from experiencing betrayal. Right? That's what this text in Matthew and all the gospels that are lifted up is meant to teach us, that even Jesus, the Savior of the world, experienced betrayal. And so surely if God experienced it in heaven, Jesus is experiencing it right now, then we can't think it's strange when we find ourselves in that position. But the challenge becomes, how do we overcome it? How do we not get stuck in the cycle? First off, let me just be clear. One of the biggest temptations when you have been betrayed is retaliation. Okay, born and bred East Oakland, we on the get back. Let's call some people up, get in the car, drive by and see people. So how can people not get stuck in the cycle of their trauma, in the cycle of being betrayed, but actually begin to take steps to overcome it? And we're glad you're back, Pastor Floyd. Thank you that you keep coming back. Amen.
Yeah, there's something going on. It's probably they've cut too many internet technicians.
I say my sound, your internet. We work. It's Maundy Thursday. It's a dark day. Okay, so we expect it.
The process of
How do you
healing
get over
from
it?
the process of healing from betrayal is both internal and external, and it isn't. And by the way, this is where I think the foot washing comes in. Right. This is why, ultimately speaking, then you go, okay, you've done what you're going to do. The question is, what am I going to do? Right. And how am I going to do this? Right. And so ultimately speaking, the first thing is to realize the betrayal may not have been about you. It's just affected you. Right. It was about them. It was about them. It was not about you.
Do you all hear that? So we have to type that in the chat, that sometimes the betrayal was not about us.
You. So to
That's
take it on,
liberating. That's
it
liberating.
really is, because
That's liberating.
because within, remember what I said earlier, within the context of every betrayal is a sense of rejection,
Yeah.
right? Right? That somebody found something they valued more than you, right? And so, with rejection, it's always about, they looked at me and rejected it. And instead of going, there was something in them that couldn't, that misbehaved, that did wrong, that had nothing to do with me, but I have now the results. Now my question is what I'm going to do about it, right? And then the other thing that is also interesting about betrayal, it is a process to get over, right? And so what Jesus does, because as you know, in my theological framework here, he's really saying, all you gonna betray me. So he didn't just wash Judas' feet, he washed them all. It only took with one of them, but he was telling all of them, you can always get back to me, right? I'm gonna wash your feet. I know you got dirty feet. I know that you messed up. I know that you're a human being, and I know that you screwed up. And I won't tell you right now, who I am is someone who can accept you if you can get back to me, if you can get back to me. But it's a journey.
Yeah, it is a journey.
Back to you, betray tomorrow. Because remember, how you get trust is you build it over time and experience. When it has been violated, you rebuild it over time and experience, and you never get in place. So it's got you open to say, I will cautiously open myself up to look and see if this person is capable. But also, if they're not willing to do that, if they're not willing to take accountability, you say, God bless you, and keep on walking.
All right. Because I was going to ask you that.
Yeah.
And so we're going to pray. Saints of God, I need you to point your hands in this direction. We need to pray for stable internet, because we need Pastor Floyd to stay on while he answers this whole question, okay? So point your hands in this direction and say, Jesus, we rebuke the internet devil right now that's trying to cut this conversation. Because listen, what I wonder, right? And we've gotten a little heavy, but not too heavy. The reality is betrayal is possible in all of our relationships. And so you've had marriages where there's been infidelity, right? You've had children who have felt betrayed by parents who have been betrayed by children. You've had again, churches who've been felt betrayed by members, pastors who have felt betrayed by members, and members who have felt betrayed by pastors. It happens in so many relationships. And so our theme as a church is we are endeavoring to be ambassadors for Christ. And see, you stalled for a minute. The devil is a liar. Ambassadors for Christ. The devil is a liar. Right? And also agents of reconciliation. But when you have been betrayed, right? Deep, transformative, personhood changing betrayal. Is reconciliation, one, even possible? And should that be the goal? You've hit it a little bit, but I need you to just stand on top of it.
No, this is yeah, and so this is the psychological spiritual merger that has to happen, which is that you can't make yourself unsafe for somebody else's safety. You can't do that.
Okay, stop. That's a moment. Stop.
I did.
Say that again. You can't make yourself unsafe
because you're trying to make somebody else safe. I mean, if you both aren't safe.
Hold on. Nope, stop talking. When I say that's a word right now,
if you aren't safe,
we'll give you an address to send him an offering. We'll go give your address so the saints can send you an offering. I need somebody to put it in the chat. You can't, and maybe we can say you don't have to. You don't have to make yourself unsafe for somebody else's safety. Jesus did that already, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Jesus does that already. But even Jesus doesn't say, "Oh, I know, you forget, you did this, and I forgive you." No, he like, go do what you got to do, because it's really your actions. Until you show me different actions, right? We can't reconcile at this point. Reconciliation is a process of mutual cooperation in the context of individual relationships. So that if ultimately, like in a marriage, right? If a person, and there are people here probably say, if the other person, there's something, this, and psychologically we call the relationship flu, right? When someone's work, and then they finally say, "I'm done," then what they're saying is, "I no longer believe it's within your context for us to work together to become to fix this thing." That doesn't mean I don't love you, don't like you. It's just it's not going to work, right? And so a part of the betrayal, you're healing from betrayal. Don't take the whole burden on, and don't be so sanctimonious reality that there's something wrong with you if you can't get back in relationship with the one who betrayed you. Because ultimately, if they don't want to be back in relationship, take accountability, be free, and keep moving on.
Be free and keep moving on. I'm going to pivot. I want to pivot. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I want to make sure we get this before our time runs out, because there were a couple of comments that came up in the chat, and I think it's a worthy pivot. So you are also, in addition to all of the other things that you are, this award-winning former director of the Center for Innovation for SFTS, all of these things, you are a pastor. And you are a preacher, you are a teacher, you're a man of God. And so the question, I believe, and I want to make sure I get it right. If I don't get it right, please retype it, because I want to get it right. And so it had to do, what about the issue of church hurt or church betrayal, where the impact and it would seem oftentimes the feeling is much deeper, right? So do you believe when someone has church hurt / betrayal? See, that one cuts off. But I think what it's getting to is, what about not when it's relationship impact, interpersonal impact, but when you've been betrayed at church, because it affects how you see God, and it affects your faith, and it affects your ability to be able to relate and grow in your relationship. And so there was a second part too, Reverend Shar, if we have it, or if the person who typed it can type it. What about that?
Right. No, I appreciate that. And again, this one might be problematic, and in some sense, I think a part of what happens is the church you got hurt with, you don't have to stay with. I mean that what you got hurt by was not God, but the community of people who say they believed in God in a certain way. And so, and then you don't have to universalize that and think that's God. Right. And so one of the things I think that some of us who've been in church have bought the reality that and I saw it all the time on campuses, right? When cult situations, right? Where people have said, "I know if this was right, it would be that way. Therefore, they're caught in that way." It's a circular motion. I just want to raise the possibility that they hurt you in the name of themselves, not in the name of God. They just use God's name.
Right.
So therefore, shift just slightly to another group of people, or shift to your own spirituality and talk with God, and you now worry about betraying them by leaving, and you should just go ahead and move on. That's a great point. Don't universalize church hurt. Understand something. My mother, who is a woman preacher, when you were growing up, and they didn't accept women preachers, right? She just went to another church that did accept it, and then they grew. And guess what? Over time, those churches who didn't accept women preachers, they did. But she just said, "You know what? That's your God, not mine. I know what God said to me," right? And went on and did it. And thank God she did. And so I think.
And so many of our denominations grew that way, right? Because women weren't accepted in Baptist traditions or holiness traditions, so they left and went to the AME Church, or the United Methodist Church, or the Presbyterian Church, right? You're absolutely right.
But if they had stayed in only sat down in their hurt and their anger and said, "This is God," right?
Right.
They would not only would the church not have grown, but their hurt is, and I don't mean this harm, no harm. As I say, I don't mean no harm by this, but it's actually not required hurt.
Right.
You could have just go, shake off the dust, move on, and go someplace else, because God is bigger than any one church,
Right.
any one
And we do
denomination.
also recognize that oftentimes I'm grateful for the people who decide, who feel a grace, because God
Right.
can grace you to be able
Absolutely.
to, for me in particular, the women who stayed and blazed trails,
Yeah, absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
I owe my life in ministry to them. So I'm
Right.
grateful for the women who stayed and endured,
Right.
but recognizing there is a grace to do that.
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
they were
Absolutely.
able to stay without retaliating. They were able to
Right.
stay without holding it. They were
Right.
able to stay, like Jesus is not going to resurrect on the third day and then come back, walk on the earth and get everybody. Right. So he's not like the occupant in the White House. I'm going to get everybody. I'm going to get the
Right.
people who got, Tesla under investigation. I'm going to get the people who I know didn't like me. I'm going to get the people. So if you are able to do it and still maintain a healthy relationship with God
Absolutely.
yourself,
Yeah.
right? And so we have resist retaliation. That's mine. You are talking about making sure. No, I have to say it because the retaliation spirit is real. You are talking about making sure, right? Taking an assessment, making sure that you are able to be reconciled. And if you are not putting yourself in unsafe situations to do that. What are some other ways that people can overcome it? Deal with the
Yeah.
grief of it.
Right. And the grief is great that you've named it as grief, as a loss of something. It's also, don't let go of the I'm gonna say this correct. Let go of the fantasy that it shall be what it was.
Mm-hmm.
The fantasies will kill you, because they are fantasies, right? And so once someone has betrayed, you might get back, but it's going to be different. But
Right.
if all you're trying to do is recover what was, you can never then create something that is new. Remember who did it, right? Remember the one, Judas didn't make it, but Peter did.
Right.
And look who he became, right?
But now
And
here's the thing. Here's the
yeah,
thing. Because I tell you,
I
Dr.
threw you a
Renita
softball on this
Weems,
one.
Dr. Renita Weems came and preached a sermon at Allen Temple Baptist Church for our church anniversary, and it was called "Don't Leave Before the Benediction."
Addiction,
And
yeah.
she said the only mistake that Judas made is that he left too soon.
Mm-hmm.
Because had he stayed, and so for those of you in the biblical text, you will find that Judas actually comes to self. He comes to
Right.
admission. He gives the money back and he says, I have betrayed an innocent man, right?
Right.
So but then he takes his life. And so the premise of our whole sermon was, had Judas not taken his life, that the same sacrifice Christ made on the cross for everyone else, he would have been the recipient of too. And he would have been restored as well. And so for me, classic, even for me, that can even go back to that how you handle church hurt thing, that you have to
Right.
give God time, right?
Yeah.
To be able, don't run away so quick, work through some things, come through some things about yourself. But I had to get that off of there. I had to get that off of there. Hold on, Dr. Taylor, she said the devil tried to keep her off and her internet went down also. And so, but it's Dr. Taylor, so she's always going to give us some wisdom and something to think about. She said, may I add that betrayal is always an inside job, that an enemy cannot betray you. It comes from the people you trust. Absolutely. We had the violation of trust conversation, Dr. Taylor, very early in the beginning. And so Judas just left too soon. If he'd have hung on a little while longer.
That's so what we haven't talked about, and is that when you have betrayed someone, I have a very good friend who, I'm not going to go into it, but really betrayed me, and I was really mad, right? And it wasn't until the person he betrayed me for betrayed him, and he found out what was going on, and he came to the fact that he had hurt this powerful, dynamic relationship which we had, which would never, we're okay, but it never got back, right?
Right, right,
Because
right.
of what he did. And so he had a journey to grace himself, right?
Mhm.
Um, and we have a ministry here that Dr. Pirelli, Stuart Pirelli is here and
Mhm.
doing man to man. One of the issues that those guys are having who may have participated in violence and relationships and things of that sort is how do you reconcile what's in you and what you did? And this is a Judas conversation. How do you
Yeah.
accept grace in that moment? Peter had that. I mean, Peter,
Yes, he
I
did.
mean, and so, but accepting grace as the betrayer is also hard.
Yes, that is true.
And we
That is
all
true.
will have that opportunity. Don't think that if there may be a moment in your life when, in fact, there are moments in our lives we just keep them hidden. That everybody in there, that there's some things you do and you're embarrassed about and said, I wish I hadn't done it. Those things, if you can't accept God's grace on those moments in the past, it will trip you up in the future. And that's the important
You got
thing.
bars tonight. I'm trying to think. Are you recording the album? When is your album coming out? Because you are dropping bars, Dr. Floyd. What
I
is
mean, that's,
going on?
I mean,
Did you have
denying
communion
that.
today? Did you have communion today on Maundy Thursday?
I mean, people deny all the time. Don't be denying. Yeah, that was used to be me. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we talked about women ministry. There are. I didn't have it because I had a mama who would kill me. But there are other ministers right now who used to believe that women couldn't be preachers. Now believe it. But then would have you believe that they always believed it. It's like, bruh,
Yeah.
no.
You like, come on.
You need to
Say, I
accept the
heard the
fact.
sermon. I was
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
But let me ask
Because
you this. Okay,
if
we
you
are
can,
at our time. We are at our time, you all. I
oh,
am so
sorry.
sorry. And so I know that you all, we've been on an hour, so you all may have to drop off. But can y'all give me like 10 more minutes? Do y'all mind? Because this is so good. It's so good. Like, I feel like we need a part two. And I just want to, do you ever believe that sometimes betrayal can be unintentional? That someone can betray someone and they don't know that what they have done is going to have the impact that it has?
No, it's always intentional. That's the definition of betrayal. The unintentional is when you do what Peter did. You denied it for your own reasons and you didn't intend it. And that's why I think there's a separation there. It's the intentionality of it that caused it betrayal, right? When someone,
Mm,
and honestly, because that's why I started off, because when betrayal has that rejection has to be a constituent element of betrayal because that's what it is, right?
mm-hmm.
And that's why it's so hard to get away. With someone like, look, I messed up, I was wrong, I didn't know, I was thinking, and you certainly believe that, then that's a different thing that happens, right? As I used to say when I was when I was working with teenagers, they did a lot of stupid stuff because they were stupid, but then they got smart later.
Right,
They got
right.
smart later, right? But when you get older, I'm like, boy, you're too old for this, right? This was not an accident. You intended that, right? And the intention is why I'm going to hold you to higher accountability. So betrayal always has to have intention.
Always
In
has
my
to have
opinion.
intention. And so we always try and leave, as I shared with you, with a bit of hope. But I do want to do this. So you have your Bible. I know somewhere you got a phone, you got something. Because you in a full office. It's somewhere. I know you look at you right there. And so Psalm 55, right?
Mhm.
David, why we appreciate him so much is because David clearly journaled, right? He clearly wrote. And every emotion, Dr. Bernstein came and did a presentation for us on emotional intelligence and the ability to recognize the emotion, the ability to name the emotion. David did not have that challenge, right? David was able to say, I'm mad at them, I want you to get them, I want you to get their kids, I want you to get their grandkids, as a matter of fact, wipe them off the planet, right? And so that, I think that's what makes David so relatable. But in Psalm 55, David is praying this prayer, right? And so he says, listen to my prayer, oh God. For those of you who are viewing, I pray you have a Bible somewhere. If not, just listen to the words. And he says, don't ignore my plea. Hear me and answer me. My thoughts trouble me, right? This betrayal trauma we're talking about. And he says, and
Mhm.
I'm distraught because of what my enemy is saying and because of the threats of the wicked. They bring me down, suffering on me, and they assail me in their anger. I'm at verse 4. My heart is in anguish within me. The terrors of death have fallen on me, fear and trembling, all these things that researchers say are signs of betrayal, PTSD. Fear and trembling have beset me. Horror has overwhelmed me. Oh, that I have wings like a dove, I could fly away, be at rest. He wants to die. I would rather not be here, right, to experience this. I would flee far away. I would stay in the desert. I would hurry to my place of shelter, far from the tempest and the storm. Then here he goes. Retaliation. Lord, confuse the wicked, right? So he has this whole list of things.
See, that's the part you like right there. That's the part.
Listen, when I say get them and get them good, get them good and let me see it, I'm a work in progress, okay? God is still dealing with me every single day. And he says, but here's why. Because Dr. Taylor just raised this. If it were my enemy that were insulting me, this is what David says, I could endure it. If it were a foe that was rising against me, I could hide. But it is you, a man like myself, my companion, my close friend, with whom I enjoyed sweet fellowship. Now that's bad enough. It's not my enemy, it's my friend. But we enjoyed sweet fellowship at the house of God while we walked about among the worshipers. You got bars tonight. I need you to speak on it. And then we're going to get to the end of it. Because he does come out of it. He does come out of it. He does come out of it. We got to pause right there.
Right. That's why John, when he tells the story of the communion, he follows it with John 14, which says, let not your heart be troubled. You understand? Yeah. When Jesus is going from the Garden of Gethsemane and he's about to get captured, he says, okay, y'all going about to see some stuff. And it might, and this is the whole point, it might shake you to your very bones.
Yeah.
But don't be troubled. I'm still God. And you are not in this alone, right? You are not, and this is why I think this story is in every passage. I know how you feel. This is why I'm a Christian, because the fact that I believe in God is not interesting to me. It's the fact that God believes in me that blows my mind. Right?
See, there go them bars. I'm telling you, that's your fifth track. That's your fifth track on the album.
In some way, God is saying, you're going to get through this because you're made in my image and I got through this.
Yeah.
and
that's a message for someone tonight. You're going to get through this because God knows in every way what we experience and go through. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I know you're going to get through this, and that which is within you, that is a storm of pain, will reside and will create a new and deeper well of joy in the end, right? Because you all know it's not just joy comes in the morning. That's interesting, but greater joy comes in the morning, because it's now the joy of survival, not just the joy of knowledge, right? And you not only will you survive this, you will also have one of the gifts that we haven't talked about. You'll get the gift of wisdom out of this.
Mm-hmm. And I would add empathy.
And empathy. Yeah.
And empathy. You will be able to identify with the pain of people. So here's your hope, right? We're going to leave you with some hope.
Let's go.
Now, David,
I want to go.
David, he got my spirit, right? So he says, verse 13, he does, 15. I got his spirit. He said, let death take my enemies by surprise.
Yeah.
This is what David was. I appreciate it, because you can't serve a God that you can't be honest with.
Absolutely.
Right? That you can't be truthful about, but you can't stay there. He said, let death take my enemies by surprise. Let them go down alive to the realm of the dead. Like, don't Let them go down alive. And y'all know what that means. That means go to the hot place, the H-double hockey sticks. Let them go down alive to the realm of the dead, for evil finds lodging among them. But then it shifts, the tone shifts. And I think when you are trying to overcome betrayal, that's what has to happen.
It has to be
In order for
yeah.
healing to take place, you have to shift from the them and the what they have done to the me and the what I need to do and what am I going to do. And so then he says in verse 16, he said, as for me, I call to God and the Lord saves me. Evening, morning, and noon, I cry out in distress, and God hears my voice. He rescues me unharmed from the battle that is waged against me, even though many may oppose me. God, who is enthroned from old, who does not change, he will hear them. God is going to handle it. He's going to hear them. He's going to humble them. And then he goes on and on. But he ends with, cast your cares on the Lord. Right? Because he will sustain you. He will never let the righteous be shaken. And his final line in 55. So for those of you who are struggling with, with issues of betrayal, read this, meditate on this, write about this. You, God, will deal with my betrayers. He says, you will bring down the wicked into the pit of decay. You're going to deal with that. But as for me, I'm going to trust you. And ultimately, isn't that what it comes down to?
Yeah. I have to say that one of the things when I get in the morning, I was like, God, I really want to get them, but you can do it better. So I'm going to let you do it, right? Because when you do it, right? I have to quote the greatest theologian of my household, which is Kathy, my wife, right? Kathy
and shout out to Kathy tonight.
She says, there is a sound in liberation. And there's the sound of a cry. And what people don't understand is you can't be silent when you're hurting. Nothing in the body wants you to be silent. So praise, so worship, so crying out to God. That's not just emotion. Right. That's your spiritual body crying out. And when, like a mother who will not forget, that's how you get God's attention and you get an infilling. So in this moment, I'm going to be very visceral here to say, you need to go into that prayer closet and cry out to God.
As they say, crash out, right? You need to crash out, right? But in your prayer closet with God.
I don't know what you need, but do that. And if nothing else, this Bible study should give you permission to do that. You're like, but Jesus didn't do that. Where'd he go after this? He went to the garden.
He went to the garden. That's that fourth event.
He had to cry out to God. He had to casting. Did you hear that last verse? Cast your care. Actually, it's casting your care. You got to cast it. This ain't laying it down. This is throwing it off.
You have to take it up, lift it, and throw it off. And he was even honest with God. He was like, look here, I know what the deal was before you sent me down here through Mary. Yeah. He said, but if there's any other way than the way of crucifixion, then now would be a good time to clue me in, right? He said, let this cup pass from me. But then he gets to that place, but nevertheless, right? And that's kind of the turning point where we all end up having to get to. I recognize this was wrong. I'm in pain. I'm angry. They have not gone to the pit of the wicked place, led to the realm of the dead. I still have to deal with them and contend with them, but nevertheless, not my will, but thy will, Lord, be done, right?
Pastor Jackie, you reminded me, like our Bible study here, when I tell the folk, I'm like, it's time. They just look and go, and keep on going. So I know it is time. I know it. And last night they were rocking, so I was like, oh my God, we ain't going to stop. But I actually thank you for this Bible study. Thank you for this moment of, which is pregnant with betrayal on so many levels. And giving us permission to recognize it, to address it, and also then to work through it, because on the other side, There is some revelation, some empathy, and I also think some wisdom.
Yeah.
It is probably important that young people in their lives right now understand that betrayal is a part of life, and don't trust that everybody that say they for you is for you every day.
Yeah.
And when they're not, you can get through it. And if that generation is learning that lesson, it's going to be a good thing.
Amen. Thank you so much, Dr. Floyd Thompkins. Come on, everybody. Help me thank him for not only spending this time, but for going overtime. We are grateful for the internet that has lasted to get us through the end, and for all of the nuggets and the wisdom that he has departed. I know at some point we're going to have to pick this up again, right? But today is Maundy Thursday. Maundy Thursday, for many churches around the nation, they hold a service of darkness along with the washing of feet, where they strip the altar, where they remove the cross, right? In order to kind of give that dramatic sense to people of what is really getting ready to take place. That final event, when he comes out from the Garden of Gethsemane, he is arrested.
Yeah.
And then that journey to the cross begins. And so thank you all so much for joining us tonight. I pray that you were blessed. I thank you for your prayers. My voice is on the way back. We're going to see what the Lord does. And so please say goodnight to Dr. Floyd Thompkins. We thank him for being with us. It was so very great. And we know there's more rich conversation able to come. Tomorrow is Good Friday. And so for those of you who are here, we are praying that you, hi, Rachel, it's good to see you. I saw your name. It's good. That's what happens. That's why I can't get caught in the comments. But hopefully, if you are free, we want you to join us at Allen Temple, where for the first time we are going to be doing 7 last words preached and in song. And so I am so very excited and expecting for it to be a very rich service. We have wonderful soloists. They're going to do Hal Hapson's version of the cantata, of Theodore Dubois' cantata of the 7 last words of Christ, along with powerful preaching from Dr. Brenda Guest, Dr. Daphne Brown, and Reverend Dale Roberts. So I pray that you all will meet me there. I will be in the building. And Dr. Floyd, we are wishing you Godspeed on the journey to the cross as well, until we all get him up on resurrection morning. Please greet my sister tonight. And I saw Sister Carmen on tonight. So we always thank God for her, Sister Carmen Patton, who is a staple, a pillar, right, for all of us. But thank you all tonight for joining us. Hey, Deacon Abernathy, tell Deacon Peterson we love him. We're praying for him. Good night, everybody. Until next week.
God bless.
Have a good night.